to understand, we probably won't be able to. And the truthful explanation is coincidentally the most accurate one. What is that? Let's talk about it. The ideal image for what it is that's so interesting and is perceived to be so positive is not necessarily what there is to see or to look at. That's the tricky thing. The human body physiologically already does every single thing it's supposed to do and every single thing imaginable, reasonable, within measure. That being said, why do we stress? What is stress about? And that's the question that's asked. Personally, I try to not ask a question. And the reason I do, I'll say, is because there shouldn't be a question asked without having already asked the question to oneself, if you will, and answered the question prior to asking the question to someone else, to others. This is all about using critical thinking skills. And that doesn't mean applying critical thinking to every instance of every situation. When a critical time comes about, that's the time to use critical thinking skills. The catch 22 is we've got to be aware of what a critical situation is, what's critical and what's non critical. And if we're not balanced in a positively healthy way, in positive health, the chances of us not being able to do that are higher and can result, therefore, in misperception, which is going to cause distress. It's going to cause the mind to react to the body. And the body, though we study the mind and the body is going to react to the mind as usual. This is the important thing about being healthy. It's no matter how much nutrition you have access to in food, if you don't practice positive health, the nutrition will do you no good. It can make a turn for the worst because health is key in a personal way. As we work with the group think, we can find out survival is possible through any and all things. Across the plane, it's when we're not in a group think and we're alone, if you will, not even in a dyad, say we're just all by ourselves. It's those moments of trying to put together the pieces we were putting together in a group together so that we can come up with something that's personally beneficial and that we struggle with the most. And many think that's legitimate and there is no way to help it. But I think practicing positive health is the resolution. Practicing how to act, manner, behave, and function, therefore. That's do all things that are within reason and within measure without giving thought to those things because we've thought about those things since we were kids and since we were toddlers, since we were babies. Many people don't credit their intelligence from being a baby. Many people start at the age where the photogenic memory comes into play, where things are clear in mind. But we've been alive and not so attracted to things, if you will, when we were babies as we are once we begin to grow as toddlers on into children, kids. And that's important to not let go of, even though it's no way to make real connections with a part of our life where we've not been knowledgeably and aware that we're making some physical contact with things we're learning about when we're observing things and we're using our sense of touch as one method to observe things, to learn how something works and discover how something doesn't work when we explore any particular area of study. When we're at the age where that's what we're doing the most, it's of course the age where we can't rely on our other four senses as much physiologically as we rely on our sense of touch because we are doing so much to attain our physical intelligence, our physiological environment, if you will, what it is that we can understand is something. Though we don't know what its name is, we don't know the name of what shape it is, but we know it's a physical object and we know we can make physical contact with it. So there's some connection in terms of who, what, when, where, why, the general basis of our intelligence and what leads to our deeper understanding that we can gather. What does that mean? We learn far earlier than what we accredit ourselves and others for. We think when you're old enough to know how to catch a ball, that's got to do with your balance, your agility, therefore, and thus your versatility. Then you're ready to understand what ball game, what sport it is that you're playing indirectly. We associate each other with knowledge. And generally speaking, we as a result perceive things when we're alone for the single or singular concept in the same way. When we are trying to make sense of something by what context it's in some way that doesn't have, therefore, anything to do with being physical. Literature is one thing. A physical sport, baseball, we learn differently. Something else like poetry. We learn without the methodology of kinesthetic preferential learning. But we wouldn't think that's possible or necessary or frankly applicable for something like frisbee. And frankly, that's also with baseball, football, anything that has something to do with visual preferential learning and is generally back and forth between physical and non-physical. Catch a ball, throw a ball back. Do without the ball for moments. Catch the ball, have the ball again. Make contact, learn that quick, and then pass the ball again. And then just rely on our memory to what it is we're learning about the game. And in the moments between catching the ball, we give no thought when we're alone and when we're to apply critical thinking skills to what we did learn about that activity or game. And the truth is, we learned the entire time we engaged in that activity. When we decide to play baseball or play catch with a ball and glove, hopefully, from the time we begin to the time we end that activity, we're learning about the activity. It's not just our physiological body we're learning about. It's whatever it is that we're making contact with, whatever it is that our physiological body is capable of, we're learning about. The mind and the body are connected, and it's inappropriate to separate the two. That being said, we are due critical thinking skills in our daily life. Once again, that's not to use critical thinking daily. That's to be able daily, able and capable to apply critical thinking skills. Thus, use critical thinking. Learn about it, study it. Learn about it, study it. Learn about it, study it. The road in that particular direction, in my first person experience, gets shorter as you progress. And so does the perception on who else is going through a conflict or a challenging situation that may cause stress. That typically and generally is going to lead to stress, be it eustress or distress, because stress is always going to be around. There is no way to completely eliminate stress. There is no way to eliminate stress to any degree. The body has to have stress in order to stay alive. And its balance within us is homeostasis. When we're at that point, it's good, in my opinion, to study on what happens when we're calm and when we're at peace. Just as important as it is to reflect and study on stressors and what causes us to overreact, to be irrational, to maybe even cause a hate attack upon ourselves or a heart attack, to cause a pattern of bad health practice that is hard to break. I don't want to say habit because I think habits are to be broken. And there are other things besides a habit that can be broken, but doesn't mean that's why it's been created in the beginning. So it's important to know the difference between our mind and our body. More importantly than it is to know the difference between right and wrong, good or bad, or logical things, virtual life. Because we all share those things, and we've shared those things for all of our lives. And there's time we've spent in this world that we don't think about when we're trying to muster up something that works, something to lean on. We've always got our mind to do more with than just apply. We've got our mind to learn from. Now, some think the mind is so far here or there that there is no way to reach the mind. There is just only the energy therein that we can access. We have access to it. The outer box, the other side of the story, the inverse direction. But as sure as there is a correlation, let's just remember they're known is a correlation coefficient that starts at a zero correlation. It doesn't start at a positive correlation or a negative correlation. Under observation, it'd be one or the other eventually. But first there is the correlation. In that sense, our mind, it's already put together. There is no see this, see that, observe this, observe that, witness this, witness that, and put that together. The mind, it's inside of the brain. That's what some don't realize. The mind's not the imagination itself. Imagination comes from the mind, from the use, the function, the functioning mind. It doesn't come from the function of the mind, because that's what we are perceiving. The brain is faster than we are. The brain makes sure we stay alive. It's called safety. It's not designed to project what's accurate, what makes sense. It's already got sense. It's got the sense all figured out as well. And that's what's in our mind. That's what we go on. But there's a step we miss, and that's to take care of our own self. And I believe that legitimately is because we live with each other. So instead, after all, of there being just an easy way out, there is a little bit of job that makes the saying true that nothing comes for free. And that's use the split moment when you do have to work with someone else, face to face or from a distance. But when it's got something to do with someone else, correlate at that time what exactly your body requires in order to carry out from a singular perspective, say on your own behalf, on the behalf of a group, be it a dyad or more than two people, what your body requires to carry the general action out. Your energy source, think about where your hormones are going. What source of energy are you going to need? And put it in terms of your body. Don't think of it as what you're going to need. Think of it as what your body's going to need. And it's the same thing. It is saying to oneself of one's needs. And that's fine to do rather than go on and on and on and be very helpful, be very contributive to any group, any club, any organization, any circle, and not have done one potentially positive thing for yourself, not because your body didn't do it, but because you didn't perceive it in your mind when it was happening. You were busy, yes, no, maybe, somewhat, therefore, furthermore, moreover, wherein, nevertheless, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And the whole time, your neck is going whoop, 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 whoop. Your back at the same time is going whoop, whoop, whoop. Your arms are going whoop, 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 whoop. And your shoulders are going whoop, whoop, whoop. Your waist is going whoop, whoop, whoop. Your hips are going and your whole body, your physiological body, is doing all of the tasks that it takes every day to stay alive. And it's doing it by balancing stress. So, where does that leave us when we find the differences? It means there's something else going on when the body is exhausted and our energy has depleted for the time being. It's not the body has not done these things. It's not that we're not aware of what it's possible from the time we wake up in the morning, any given day, to the time we lay down to rest, whether that's to go to sleep, pass out, doze, nod, or what have you. Rest. Between those two periods of time, the body has done everything that's necessary to survive that period of time and each end. We in mind should know not just that in general. Yeah, my body's good, my body's not good, I feel good, I feel bad. We've got to understand the things that keep on going. That is the reason we have critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is what you make it. It's however things go. The math, if you will, all about the science. So, what's so discouraging about putting together the combination of pros and cons and establishing what's in the middle area? Seeing as how in correct math and in correct science, we'd be using all five senses, we'd be somehow expected to be able to process things at least 5 times out of 100 from a 0.05, generalizationally speaking. In the other 95%, we should expect to just be in observation, which is also going to show the power of our brain and our mind and just how unlimited sense exists within the body. So it's not a thing about being a baby or being an adult or being distressed or being happy. It's all about being awake. Stay awake. Sleep, it lasts so long. People go to sleep, and when people wake up, people get up fine and people move around fine, and then time comes 2, 3 weeks, days, hours later, that person is not at the performance level he or she was at when he or she woke up. That's from the 180 degrees to the 90-degree angle. A perfect stance. The brain's kicked in then, and the person's been asleep or not awake. There is an area between wake and sleep, and that's where we are. And it's a muster, but it's a mingling occasion. Some are in the process of healing, and others are still incurring the allostatic load. And the body takes its own attempts to heal. Every single day, the body initiates the process of healing, recovering from the allostatic load that we accumulate each day. The body knows what to do from learning from another body. It's nurturing. Females do it. Naturally, females nurture more than males, theoretically. But truly, and biologically, naturally so, a female is designed to perform nurturing. That's a fact. So, we learn mostly just by touching. And the idea is we don't have to speak or talk in the human world, in the human realm, in the biological realm. All things are just as they appear, because people are people, places are things, and things are places. They switch roles as a person interacts. Where things are, it connects the body to the mind to relate the thing to a place if we can't remember the thing right off the top of our heads, if you will. That's memory. In memory, a person goes back and forth from a thing and a place with either thing or place if we cannot remember one right off the top of our head. A thing, if it's a thing and we don't know what the name of it is, but we were told what the name of it was, we don't fail to see in mind if we can remember any instances where we had made use of this thing or where we saw this thing in use, so we can remember what the name of it is. And with places, we think about what place we were in by things that were there. If we can't remember right off the top of our memory where the place is that we are thinking about or discussing. But we never get a person wrong. And that's why we should start with the physiological body when we're talking about information. And that's our only deal. We're not here You understand? We're in motion, we're fluent, but we is plural. And the idea is to achieve singular success and prosperity, positivity, and good health just as much as it is to do that when working with each other. That's how we work better with each other and for each other. There's a lot of stories of how much we've done. We, not him or her or his or hers or me or I. We, us. There's a lot, but there's not as many that have been told about either of us individually. Independently, we all have way more stories individually than we have together, but we won't share them all. And the excuse is, or the reason that's been used is, I've got to work with them. I've got to work with you all. We've got to do this. Our this depends on that or this. And that's when it's just another person, other people, other human bodies, just the human race is so minute in comparison to the allostatic load potentially to not handling stress in the correct way. There's a study now about stress, good stress, bad stress, how to get into it, how to get out of it, how to get into it and stay around and then get out, how to get out of it and hang around and go back into it. But that's all because we want to establish that unknown variable is always going to be that way. So we come to our sense about the real difference between one thing and another thing. Knowing things and how they relate is all about, in other words, sharing, contributing, helping, enlightening, distributing, understanding. When all of that's said and done, we've our own body that each person knows about to worry with. That's whether it's a good day or a bad day. We've got to worry with the body. Some don't really get into worrying with the body until the body's in trouble. That's the thing about health. You don't want to get into a situation where you need help before you seek help. Help before there's a situation where you need help, because that's the only time that help can help you. We can only be helped if there's room for help. There's not just room for someone to get through the crowd and do this or do that or come around and finally sit down with you or something. Help itself has got to have room to get in. There's got to be some give and take the entire time. Help is not good if you're down and out. You got to that point because when you were at the point where help was essential, you refused help. You denied there was a problem and went on a slippery slope. Help's no good because the mind is very powerful and our perception as well is very influential. We've got to do things for our own body. That's self, that's mind, that's body, that's spirit. And there's more than a few people in this world that understand that. There's enough that studies have been created, methodology exists about what to do and where to do it, just as much as there is when to do something and why. Philosophy is equivalent to psychology. The reason why is because these things are instruments, not tools. They work. You jump in like double dutch. It's not like jump rope, single rope, like double dutch. More so, you've got to jump in. It'd be the same if you could hold those two ropes, your own self, and turn on the jump. But since this is jump rope, double dutch is jump rope, where you don't hold a rope, you don't even touch a rope when it's your turn to jump. The two on the ends, the one on each end, are in double dutch, holding the rope, turning the rope as well. But when it's your turn to jump, when anyone's turn comes to jump, that person is in double dutch without touching a rope. That's how it is with instruments. Tools, you use them. Instruments, you let use you. And that's an issue about trust. And the only way to get to trust is not to point fingers and try to come up with other places and people or things. The only way to exercise the efficiency in a characteristic like trust is to have established a good, positive, happy spirit and mood within your own self first, because of having in this life a childhood as well as an adulthood. The adulthood, it goes, 18 to 90, 18 to 60, 18 to 100. And the childhood goes, well, think about there's 9 months in conception, after conception, and that's biologic life. And then you got to think, well, how long before then? The biology between the paternal gene and the maternal gene. What age do we get to as a child? Or before we're an adult? Lots of that time is not clear in our memory. We were not old enough in kinesthetic sense to logically process what things we needed to process for the purpose of working with someone else. But we did process those things for specifically what those things mean to our own self. And that's the thing about trust. We've got to trust our own self in order to use trust in times where it's involving someone else. If we don't learn how to trust without anyone first, we won't be very good trusting when someone is in need of our trust. Deception is what's going to happen instead. No problem, I take care of it, I don't mind. And in the back of the scenes, backstage, grief and distress, compiling allostatic load, cumulative wear and tear that the body takes to deal with stress. That's key, to deal with stress. So it doesn't mean we've got to worry or face stress just because we're in homeostasis, and it's consisting of positive stress, negative stress. That's all to learn. There is more than one avenue, if you will, to take. More than one lane goes in the same direction, meaning it's okay to relax about navigation, because give or take a few meander to the left, a little meander to the right, you're not off of the track. You're not off track from where you're going, where you need to go, where you want to go, where you should end up. That's what these studies are for. And that's why I go in some and then I have to come back out and explain or elaborate. And it takes me back in, which isn't a reason that I'm giving right now. This is the natural process of physiological exercise. And I go around in there some more and I come back out again. And it's the same kind of pattern in your mind you can think of when you think about breathing, inhale and exhaling. You can go down and go up, and sometimes you go one way a little longer than you did before, and then you go back the other way, and it keeps going. It's that kind of a thing. And typically you think so because here we are in a biological body, in a physical composition. Breathing is how we are alive and able to talk and discuss things and share things. So going back and forth, it's not going to solve anything, but hopefully in this, you'll understand a little better of what's important. And that's that people are getting in shape physically all the time and every day.